one's expecting this. Let's see. Oops, I gotta go this way. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay, let's see if I can make this happen. Move this over here. Move this over here. Just making all this happen, ladies and gentlemen. No one's going to notice a thing. I'm just, doing this. Sliding things around, just moving things around, making stuff happen. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Okay, Wizard of Oz line. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. What's up, fat with a double T? Fat with a double T. With double T. All right, nice. Nice, fat with a double T. Love that. What's going on, fat with a double T? Double T, what up? There it is. Shit. All right. Okay. Yeah, right. There it is. Hello. Hi. How's everybody doing? Okay. I'm assuming we're good, right? Yes. That's what's happening. We're good. All right. Well, here we are. Unbelievable. We have made it. Episode 365. One full year. That's right, fat. I've been doing this 1 year. Today is a 1 year anniversary of doing this every single night. Every single night I have done this for a year. Welcome to Randsanity year 1. Woo! I can't believe I made a whole year. It's kind of crazy if you think about that in the grand scheme of things. So normally I do this at 11 o'clock. So if nobody shows up, I know exactly why. In fact, if it's just you, that's okay. And where is fat with a double T from anyway, since I don't know? I just know it's F-A-double-T. But that's totally fine. Where are you coming from, F-E-double-T? I want to know. I'm curious. I'm an inquisitive soul. That is what I am. That is what I am. So anyway, welcome. Episode 365. One full fucking year of doing this. I found all my notes. Since I have like this, and there's another notebook here. There's this current notebook too that's just about full. So, I literally take copious notes every single night and have, everything. So, I think we'll do a little retrospective, as they say. We'll look back in history on the stuff that went on and where I started. The funny thing, the thing that I found to be kind of interesting and a little amusing was that I went and I looked at the very first video. This is the very first video. There it is. That's the background. There's nothing there. It's just completely bland. Look at this. I was like, wait, okay. I'm like, okay, look at this. That's the background. There's nothing there. It's completely like devoid of any artwork or anything. I'm kind of shocked that it's even working. If you look at my face, I'm like, oh, it's actually working. I'm surprised by this. I've got 3 cameras that operate.
All right.
So I think that's half the amusing part about it is that I'm amused that it's working, that I could even get it to work. So I was like, all right. And so the notes from the very first thing I have is a story about labels out and branding pictures. So this is my very first notes. It's nothing exquisite whatsoever. It's just, stuff, little things. So labels out. That was a story I was going to tell. So labels out is related to alcohol. When we were doing the radio station and we would have to do any kind of a promo, we had to teach everybody, salespeople to interns, that when you're at a promotion and you're there with a beverage, you always have to make sure that labels out. So when you take a picture, it's like this. So so if the thing where you drink is over here, you got to turn and But make sure that when you're done, you're holding your glass labels out, because that's how the photographs are get taken, because you have to hold the branding. It was all about branding and marketing, and we had to teach that to everybody. So all the photographers, all the interns were taught about this branding, about how you have to make sure that you are, in fact, telling, hey, labels out. Oh, okay. So we all knew what labels out was. So that was part of the whole branding of pictures. You had to have labels out for promotions at the radio station. So that was, I guess, one of the first things I talked about was labels out, which I think is hilarious. I also found that, I talked about Turnstile a little bit, hardcore punk, where they're from. And basically the notes are horrible. Turnstile, Never Enough, LP4, 15 years old. The Punk Electronic, Baltimore, 2010, Glow EP, Hold'em, Holiday and Blackout in 21. They're just kind of like scribbly notes. I even have a thing that says labels out book. Meaning it's part of the branding and marketing thing that I talked about. So this is hilarious. Okay, I'm just kind of watching this in the background. So, I don't know if there's audio with this or not. There might be, but then I'm like switching cameras. Like, so, yeah. Oh, okay, so this thing works? I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I put my heart and soul into that. That was 3 decades.
I can push buttons and make stuff happen. It's hilarious. I love that so much. But it definitely morphed and evolved. From the very beginning, I wasn't talking just music. So when I was looking at the historical things, I was looking at everything. So, I found stuff that was just ridiculous. Trampled by Turtles. We did. So what I started to also do was search through my ticket stacks. So I've got stacks of tickets like this. Here's a VIP pass from Silver Sun Pickups on the 15th of November in 2021. So I started to find ticket stubs like this. Here you go. Johnny Marr. So I saw Johnny Marr on Saturday, November 22nd of 2014. And I saw Hozier played at the Palace Theater November 6th, 2019. So I was finding all these tickets that would correspond with dates that I was doing. So I was going through my ticket stacks and going through the Newport Music Hall and all these historic records. So I was finding things. So like on June 10th, I saw Trampled by Turtles in 2016. I saw Go-Go Bordello in 2008. My Morning Jacket in 2004. Snoop Dogg in 2010. So that was interesting, but that became so time-consuming. It took me, hours, because I had to search through all of these records to find all this stuff. And then my own ticket stacks, I can't even find, there's so many. I have like stacks of these things. So I was like, oh my God, I don't have the time to do this. My life is more important than this. So I got bored and stopped doing that part because I was just like, I couldn't do it. So like by June 22nd, now they're watching. I can hear somebody else watching this. I hear my voice echoing. So someone's watching this upstairs. Hi, upstairs. So by like this first and second week, I was starting to take better notes. So I was taking better notes of stuff, sort of trying to find more historical things. Now I had just done being out on the road in Cleveland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, doing this Heinz ketchup thing. So basically this Heinz Verified with Stephen He. So I was sort of fresh talking about that. So a lot of the stuff encompassed talking about the things that I have done when I was doing that early on. So I didn't really have any background stuff going on, and I didn't find the niche yet of what I wanted to do. So I was, again, I was talking about shows like I saw Catfish in the Bottle Man in 16 with the Warren Flints. And, we talked about Friday the 13th in June. Like, why is 13 so bad? So I dove into all of these different things that related to just historical content, less musical. Like Judas was the 13th death. Jesus was crucified on a Friday. Norse mythology, Loki was the 13th god, and he's associated with chaos and death. Fear of 13 is trichidecaphobia. Mass, let's see, there was the mass arrest of the Knights Templar on the 13th on a Friday in 1307. And the buildings don't have 13th floors, and there's holes and there's no room 13. So hotels don't have room 13. So it's all these things that I was sort of talking about, trying to find what was going on. While this was going on, again, now I am 1 year. End of April was the end of the official end of the radio station. So I was 1 year, sort of out of the radio biz officially, and still kind of adrift when it came to what exactly is that I'm doing. So this was sort of this cathartic thing. I'm like, well, I'm just going to do this. And June 1st was this arbitrary day. It really didn't have any. I didn't really have it planned very well because, again, if you kind of look at the historic first day, I'm just kind of
Buckeye Brian. Brian.
This actually works, and I'm kind of like trying to read things and just kind of go through it. I love the background that there's nothing there. It's my tools,
and, we'll go from
because
there.
I didn't really plan for much of anything.
All right.
Other than all right, I'm just gonna do this thing, and all right, I guess it works, and there's a sticker.
Randsanity.
So that sort of became what it was. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with this thing. Like what was the actual purpose? And to 100% honest, I'm not still sure of the purpose. It gives me something to do at night, keeps me out of the bars. But it also it keeps me sort of in touch with what's happening musically, because I think that's more important than anything. I want to have a idea of the pulse of music. So historically, sort of knowing when, understanding the births and the deaths of things, and finding out, like, okay, this person was arrested on this day, and then looking back, like, okay, so how many times have the Rolling Stones been arrested? So I went back and looked. It's like, yeah, so Ron Wood like 5 times, like Axl Rose 20, yeah, Axl Rose 20 fucking times. I was like, Jesus, all right, so he's been arrested a lot of times. Paul McCartney half a dozen times, mostly early on. He probably got smarter about it later in life. But all of those things sort of, became this stuff. As I talked more and more about it, as I got a little bit later, by June 19th, I was still talking about, day of the week. Oh, tomorrow. So it was like, what is today's day? Tomorrow is Seashell Day, and, hang with a geek day, and take your dog to work day. Summer's last day, ice cream soda day, vanilla milkshake day, and American Eagle Day. So, it was a lot less things about music and more directly related to just things, like stuff, historical stuff. Sort of like stuff that happened on the day. And that research was taking me a couple hours easily every day I was doing that. I was spending at least 2 hours researching stuff. And then I was talking about radio station stuff, sort of thinking back historically to, the times of the radio station. And I was trying to find what people were most interested in. Because my radio station stories to me aren't boring, but I didn't know if they're boring to some of the people. And he's why we're all here. Happy anniversary. Oh, thank you. First anniversary. Thanks, Jill. The man in the van. It's true. I am the man in the van, George. And you know what? What's so funny, George? The Wine Fest is this Saturday, and George showed up a year ago at the wine festival with a shirt on that said, "I'm here looking for the man in the van." And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking genius. I was like, you've just made a fan for life, George. So that was what was so funny. Right, Jill was here for the very first episode, and many more since. But yes, we've made it a whole year, so it's kind of crazy. You did. I know you made that shirt. It was brilliant. I love that so much. But it was hilarious. So yeah, George made this shirt and showed up at the wine festival, and it said, I'm here for the guy in the van, because in this Heinz ketchup, I was the guy in the van. So it's just been interesting, because I wasn't sure what people were interested in. They were interested more in the stories of the radio station, of the antics of me and all the staff. At one point, I mean, I've never shown it, and I'm really tempted to do it. And I think I can. Actually, I know I can, because I have the rights. Everybody signed off on it. I have a sizzle reel that we made into a DVD that we pitched to all of these different places to try and get a reality TV show about the radio station. And it was Life on Air. That was the name of it. And the guy that shot it, the two guys that shot it with me, one of them is Mark Vins, who's a pretty famous producer now. The other guy is Coyote Peterson. Yeah, Nate Hom, Coyote Peterson, who has like 40 million YouTube subscribers. So their first whack at doing something was with me trying to do this radio station thing. And we drove down to Nashville, and we went to a couple of pitch meetings at some studios. And people liked it, but they just couldn't wrap their hands around it well enough to understand it. We were like, we could have rock star power, like to have all of these stars that can show up in these episodes because of the things that we were doing. We tried to add a little bit of drama and craziness to it, but I mean, there was enough already because the radio station was crazy. When I started there, it was like a startup. No one knew what they were doing. We really didn't. We just kind of did it by the seat of our pants, and then continued doing that for 3.5 decades. Just kind of, what seemed to work? Great, this works. Well, let's do it. And if it didn't work, well, okay, it doesn't work. Let's not do that anymore. There was the mantra of, it's just a suggestion. And that was one of the things that we lived by. This guy named Chip Morgan, who was our engineer for years, came up with that idea. It was just like, I was like, hey, let's do this. We're like, that totally worked. Yeah, it was just a suggestion. So this woman who was IT for like 20 plus years at the radio station, Amy Diefenbach, we lived by that. We always laughed about it, like, it's just a suggestion. And so half the stuff that we did was just a suggestion. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, well, we just moved on and we didn't dwell on it. And we tried not to burn the place down. We figured if it didn't kill us or anybody else, that would be fine. And there was times that we almost did kill people. There was a couple of accidents that we got into, not me personally. We would go on ski trip adventures and bus adventures all the time. And we would take these bus loads of listeners to concerts, shows here, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Blossom Music Center. It didn't matter where. But all over the place. And we also did this thing called Ski D101, where we would go skiing up to Mad River Mountain. And we'd take a bus load. It was usually powered by a beer company or an alcohol company or something. So, it was a party bus. And it was cheap because they would underwrite most of the cost. And we would get the money from the sponsorship. So we'd take people with us. And there was this one time that we went up to Mad River Mountain, and I was on the bus. Everyone had unloaded, and we were sort of in the unload area, and the bus driver's, in there. And it was like me and one other person. And all of a sudden he accelerates. We're in the parking lot, and he steps on the gas on the bus. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And we're like zooming suddenly. There's people everywhere. This is where people unload their cars and stuff. There was a girl with a snowboard that was right in the line of this bus. And I could have sworn that we ran her over. Apparently she dove out of the way. The bus crashed. Something happened. The accelerator got stuck. He didn't know what to do, panicked, and crashed the bus into a pine tree right at the entrance of Mad River Mountain. Drove up this pine tree. We're talking a Greyhound bus. Crashed this thing. I went flying. The other person that I was with, I think it might have been Jordan, went flying. And we're just like, did we just kill that girl? That's all I cared about, because I really thought we ran this girl over. So we got on the bus and we didn't run her over, but it was just crazy. We had a bus catch on fire once. We went up to a concert at Blossom, And, come after the show, the bus is parked in this VIP area. We're all like, woo, yeah. It was like Pearl Jam or something. We come back, we're like, yeah, we come here, guy. I'm like, wait, why is there fire trucks? What's going on? I'm like, what? He's like, bus caught on fire. I'm like, what? What bus? I was like, our bus? I was like, when did our bus catch on fire? Well, apparently the driver was idling and fell asleep and something happened and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So literally we're stuck up at Blossom. Hi, Jeremy Hughes. We're stuck up at Blossom Music Center for like 3 extra hours till they sent another bus up from Columbus to come save us. So, I mean, the place is pretty much closed at this point. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. If you've ever been to Blossom, it's not like we can go walk to the 7-Eleven. We're in the middle of a national park, like backstage. So we're in the middle of nowhere and we're just sitting there. And I think this was pre-cell phone where everyone didn't have cells in their pocket at that moment. So it was just like, okay, this ridiculous adventure. And we couldn't do anything about it. And it's just sort of like you live through it. The girl, and I've told the story before, going to a Jimmy Buffett concert. And it was close. It was at Polaris. So it wasn't that far. We pre-partied a little bit ahead of time and we're driving up there. And, as we're getting ready to turn into Polaris, a cop car pulls in front of the bus, like screeching halt, and makes the bus driver like slam on the brakes and everybody goes lurching forward. He comes running over to the bus, smashing on the door. He's like, open the door. And he's like, who's in charge? And, I'm literally sitting up front and he's like screaming in the bus. I'm just like, me? He's like, someone's going to jail. And I'm like, okay. Going, really? I don't really want to go to jail. I'm like, what's the problem? So I go outside and he's screaming, someone apparently threw a beer bottle out of the bus and hit him while he was directing traffic. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm very sorry. I said, I'm not sure it was, but I'm sure we get to the bottom of this. And my heart is literally beating out of my chest because there's now like 3 cop cars and this guy is irate and the other cops are literally holding this guy back kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, this is so not good. But I literally got on the bus. I'm like, hey, so apparently one of you guys in the back of the bus pushed a beer bottle out and you hit this fine officer. I said, so he's rather upset, but someone needs to come forward and tell me what it is because someone's going to jail and it's not going to be me at this point. So no one wants to fess up. I'm like, okay, so we're not going anywhere, just so you know. No one's going to this concert and he's really not going to be happy. So someone's going to have to like either narc out whoever did this or whoever did this. You might as well just come forward. We're going to eventually find out. And here comes some girl. She stands up and raises her hand. She was a lawyer. She was just drunk. And she was like, I didn't know. Off the bus she went. Into the cop car she went. And away she went. We were just like, okay. I guess we're going to the show. But the crazy, crazy stuff. We lost somebody once on a bus because she intentionally got off. She was in a fight with her boyfriend. We had the state troopers looking for her. We were at a rest stop in between here and Cincinnati for like 3 hours searching for this girl, thought she had been kidnapped or something. They were going to put a bolo out, like an APB. Oh no, she just got in a fight with her boyfriend and left. Just jumped, like hitched a ride with some trucker. And we find out hours later and we're like, are you kidding me? Like, we've been in a panic mode down here, literally with the state troopers searching for this girl that, the head count's off and we couldn't find her. So, the stuff that went on with the radio station was just insane. And it's sort of, it continued like that constantly. That was just went on, on bus rides. But every time we did an event, we had to be in this public eye that we would go to these concerts and would be at these events. There was one time that I wasn't there when it happened. So I don't know the exact circumstances of exactly what happened. But the likelihood of drinking involved in this incident is very high. One of the assistants of the radio station apparently fell over the railing at the A&R bar. It's like, 10 feet down, broke his wrist, like shattered it. had to get it set, pins and everything. And I'm just like, okay, were you drinking? No, there was no drinking involved. I'm like, so you just fell over the railing? Just fell over the railing? And never got to the bottom of the story, but yeah, clearly, shenanigans occurred. He was fooling around with somebody and they were doing something, chasing something or doing something, and went over the railing. And I'm like, Jesus God. I'm like, we had the craziest DJs. We had a DJ that used to work overnights, and everyone was afraid of him. He used to carry like a Bowie knife, like a giant ass knife in the studio. He'd turn all the lights off and he'd light a candle. I mean, you're not really supposed to have a candle in the studio at night, but nobody really said anything because everyone was afraid of him because he was just kind of nuts. So it was sort of our own WKRP in Cincinnati. At one point, and I've talked about this before, that record labels would bring music into the studios, and they would bring them on their phones, or they would bring them on their own CD player or their own boombox, so we couldn't copy it. Well, it turns out that one of the staff had bugged the studios. So every time, like when the general manager, who wasn't me, before me, would go into the studio to have private conversations with the DJs, he was sitting in the studio, like looking like he was doing all sorts of like production work. He was bugging the studio and listened to everything. So he was privy to every private conversation. He bugged the offices. I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? We found out about this later on. I mean, I had to set up cameras. Some of the shit, I had to set up like hidden cameras in like some of the main office parts, because some of the shit that went on, I'm like, okay, who is doing this? This has to be a staffer. And then of course it's like, we see it. I look at the video. I'm like, okay, so do you want to explain yourself? What are you talking about? I'm like, this. Oh, well, it's just like, okay, so you're fired. Like, you're fired. You do realize that, right? Like, what were you thinking? Like, I've been looking for this person for months now. And it just continued. Like, I'll never get caught doing that. And so, yeah, just the craziness. Just the crazy, and the personalities of people. We had the cops show up for a staffer once. Literally, like, guy walks in the front door, and all of a sudden we see there's a cop at the other two doors, and we're like, oh yeah, we're here for, is so-and-so here today? I'm like, I don't think so. Okay, well, all right, thank you. I'm like, wait, what? And they were here to arrest him. They were clearly there to take him to jail. So it was the sales guy. He never came back, and that was the end of that. We did a guest DJ once. We did guest DJ every day in the month of May. And then every Friday we'd have guest DJ. And back in the 503 South Front Street studios, one day we had a guest DJ. He came into the studio and sat there. He was like, hey, yeah, I'm John. How's everyone doing? Blah, 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 blah. Doing his thing, maybe like 15 minutes into his hour broadcast, two cops walk into the station. They're like, yeah, hi, where's your DJ booth? And the receptionist was like, can we help? And they're like, yeah, where's your DJ booth? And they just kind of walked right in. And they're like, Randy, I go right down. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, yeah, where's your DJ booth? We're like, he's like right here. They walk right in. They're like, John Mahachek? And they're like, stand up, you're under arrest. This guy is live on the air. But apparently he had a warrant for his arrest. And he's on a radio station saying, hey, this is John Mahachek live at CD 101. So apparently someone knew that he had a warrant for his arrest, called the cops and said, hey, that guy John you're looking for, I can tell you where he is right this exact second. So sure as shit, they walked right in, picked him up, handcuffed him, and walked him out. When they dumped out his bag, he had a whole bag of weed and a bong in it. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck? And the Jesus is like, what do we do? What do we do? I'm like, nothing. I was like, just play the rest of his music. Don't mention he was here. Don't say he left. Just act like nothing ever happened. Just play the rest of his set, but don't say it's his set. Just play the music like, oh, and that was, so-and-so by The Cure. Oh, and that was so-and-so by, Lesbian Love. And that was so-and-so by Public Image Limited. and then just go do your normal shift, but never mention any of this live on the air. And that's what he did. No one ever figured it out. No one caught on to it. And if they did, they didn't pay enough attention or say anything to it. But you know, that was what it was. That was literally how that worked. I mean, we had police show up all the time for stupid shit. I mean, we had a staff member once that literally walked in the door first day, loaded. And I mean, like, well, like this is their first day. It was also their last. But I was like, holy shit. Like, took like a 2-hour lunch and came back and was just hammered. I was like, okie dokie. Well, that was their first and last day of employment. and this was ongoing. This wasn't like year 1. This was year like 15 or 20 or 30. And it continued. It always was that way. We had meltdowns. We had staff members that we had to have police like involved with like, escorting them out because they had meltdowns. I always said, you know, you only left the station in 2 conditions, in a casket or a basket. And I know that's harsh, but I mean, we had Wendy Steele, who was my mentor, the director of marketing that hired me originally, died October 1st of like 2009. We had Andy Mann die. He died on July 18th in 2010. We had Mace. He died June 6th, 2020. And all the male program directors that have ever been male program directors of the radio station are all gone. Tom Tuber, gone. Andy, gone. Mace, gone. It's like a skit from fucking Spinal Tap with the drummers. Every one of the program directors that was a male no longer is alive. Just, I didn't make this up. It just, okie dokie. That's just the way it goes. But it's just, you know, and we had some crazy staff members over the years. And I mean, just nuts, like certifiable. You know, we had a DJ get fired because I showed up late one night coming back from a concert with my boss at the time, the program director, because she was kind of above me in the hierarchy of things. And there was 2 cars in the parking lot. And I'm just like, oh, no. I'm like, no. Don't tell me you've got a girl in the studio with you. And, you know, she's like on a warpath, like pulls up, we're in a limousine. She goes running in, rips the door open, yells his name. And I was just like, and I'm like, you know, half a step behind her, like, ugh. And, you know, and there's a girl in the studio with him. And, you know, in an inappropriate place and time. And I'm just like, oh, you're so fired. And he was. She let him go for that. She was so mad. I mean, I had a DJ have a meltdown at an event one night. And I mean, complete, like, shit show meltdown. Like, the police had to be called kind of thing. And I'm just like, I'm like, you know, intern level at that point. This was way early. And I'm just like, okay. I was like, so this seems to be not going the way it should be. I was like, kind of like, I guess I should step in and like do the remainder of the duties of this DJ at this point, because he is no longer capable of, you know, alliterating any word whatsoever. And again, you know, he was fired after that. Next day, you know, they got in the office and that was like out the door with him. You know, there's a couple of times I thought I was going to get my ass kicked out the door. Believe me, there's no lie there. You know, just because of some of the stuff, when stuff would go wrong, you know, I learned an interesting lesson that I still to this day I share with people. That I had an assistant when I was marketing, an assistant promotions guy with me, and we had like 3 events to do in one day. We did 2 of the events, and he didn't want to do the 3rd event. I'm tired. I just want to do it. I'm like, bro, we got to do this. So we didn't get the thing done properly. And so the next day I got called into the sales manager's office and the general manager's office. And they're just like, blah, 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 client, yada, yada, yada. And I'm just like, okay, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, it was so-and-so's fault. And I always remember my boss laughed at me like, he goes, so it was your assistant's fault? He goes, no, it was yours because you didn't train him properly. You didn't motivate him properly. You didn't give him the proper tools to understand that this has to get done. He goes, so you need to fix this. And by fix this, you need to do this and this and this. So he's like, I'm like, well, he's kind of like my friend and this and this. He's like, well, it's easy. He goes, you can fix this or I will. He goes, if you fix it, you can put him on probation and we can deal with the consequences later. He goes, if I fix this, I'm going to put him on probation. I'm going to fire you. I was like, okay. So I did what I needed to do. He didn't last 90 days because he didn't, couldn't meet up to the things that were meant to be. But it was one of those very sort of harsh lessons that I learned that I was like, okay, I guess that's, if you want to be the boss and you want to have the responsibility of that, you have to be okay with pulling the wings off butterflies sometimes. Because that's what it kind of felt like, because I was like, I don't want to do this. But that was the reality of it, so the craziness of that. So again, I think a lot of that all compelled me to want to do this because I wanted to be able to have this catharsis of being able to talk about the radio station while still staying somewhat connected to this music industry that, I kind of fell into in the grand scheme of things. I really did. When I went to school, I didn't really have a finite direction. Like, I am going to be a doctor, a lawyer. I'm going to be a physician. I'm going to be a judge. I didn't have that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a very general communications degree and I like this stuff and I'm good at doing stuff and okay. And this internship sort of arose out of me asking about it. The radio station came on the air in August 21 of 1990, and I got involved with it because I was the president of the Ohio State University Ski Club. And we did a thing with the radio station with Warren Miller, who used to make these epic ski films. And that's how I met the radio station in general. I was aware of it. I had listened to the music. But it wasn't anything that I was sort of like, oh my God, I have to work in radio. This is what I want to do. This will be my life. It wasn't. I didn't even think that way. And so I met Wendy Steele and I asked, I'm like, do you guys have an internship program? Thinking like, wow, it's getting toward the end of my college thing. I probably should think about what I'm going to do here at some point. Besides, with all my friends like, we're going to go live in Colorado and ski and work the ski slopes and go whitewater rafting. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. I don't think that's the best option. Maybe not. Maybe a little more stable than that. Just a tad bit more. But at least, thinking like, I probably should think of something a little more career-minded. And so like, no, we don't have an internship program, but we're thinking of doing one. So I was like, okay. And this was like the summer of like 91. So the station had not even been on the air a year yet. They'd had a huge personnel changeover because it was an ownership changeover. And that fall, I was like, sure. I was like, I think can I be an intern? They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, great. So I want to be an intern. So there was me and this guy named Bill. We were the first two interns at the radio station. And, it was it was chaos because no one knew what they was doing. I imagine what a startup is like. That's the only thing I could even equate the experience to at the radio station is that it was like what a startup must be like because it was chaos. It really was. The owner at the time was absent. He was a business guy. Very nice, lovely human, lovely family, but he was raising his family and he was a business guy. So he had a remote office somewhere else. He wasn't there. And we had this general manager who had done radio before. And this marketing director who had done radio before. But that was about it. Nobody else had done radio. They had all done other things like the DJs, like Andy, man, was a moving guy. This was his first gig ever being a DJ and program director. It was like, all right, yeah, I can pick good music, sure. I mean, literally. And I was like, so, okay, you know what you're doing? I'm like, sure, I can totally do stuff. So, I had a little book on guerrilla marketing that was sort of my tome. Like, I have no money, so how do I promote stuff? Well, you do stupid shit, basically. Get in front of a crowd, carry the baton, and so that's what I did. I did all the stupidest shit you could possibly imagine, short of getting arrested. And I did have the cops knock on the door a couple times, like, you need to take that down. I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry, didn't know. That's sort of the ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission. I got in trouble with Kappa when I apparently put a couple of nail holes in the back of their historic building. Oops. Sorry, didn't know. My bad. Won't do it again. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely created a few enemies just by stupid shit like that, not knowing. But it was just this chaos that it ensued to what I told one of the DJs, that I'm going to learn everything so that they'll never be able to get rid of me. And I did. I literally learned everything there was to know about everything, from engineering to sales to the marketing to management to, the structural parts of literally how towers are built, so that I could, oh, we need to get this done. I'm like, I can take care of it. I'll do it. I'll go do it. I'll take care of it. I'll go down and do it. And I morphed that into a 30+ year career, starting for the non-paid intern kid to the owner. But again, it was, I don't think at any point it wasn't chaos. Really. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think there was ever a time where I would say it was completely stable. Everything was stable. Everything was good. It was never that way. We were always struggling because of the fact that we had a small signal in a good market. We were a weird station because alternative music was not the mainstream. We weren't QFM 96 playing album-oriented rock, and we weren't heavy metal. So we played obscure, sometimes weird, even unlistenable music at times. And it took years for us to find, the programmers that could kind of hone in and do a good job of that. And that came with research. We mostly hired people that weren't radio people. Like, anyone new that came in wasn't a radio person. They didn't come from radio. They came from being a waitress, working in a bar, doing something that was a stand-up comedian, just something that they were good at in public. And the radio part would come later. And that was something that was really important, though. We didn't want to hire someone's bad habits. And that because when we did hire people that had previous radio experience, they never lasted. They always had these bad habits that didn't fit because we didn't do things the way other stations did it, for better or worse. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I will never be the one to say we did everything perfectly right, always, every time. Absolutely not. We flew by the seat of our pants most of the time. We really did. And like I said, it's just a suggestion. So if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And we had some epic failures. Epic. I think that the most epic failure and the most demoralizing thing that I ever did was the crowdfunding. That was probably the most epic, for me personally, the most epic failure was the crowdfunding, because I assumed that we had a much more loyal and dedicated audience that would sort of rise up to the occasion and save us. And then when it was like, it just, for the amount of time and effort that we put into it, it just kind of crushed the morale of everybody. And it was a lot to recover from. It really was. That really, really kicked some ass. Because, I had to invest my entire persona into that to kind of get behind that. And just, whew, man, that was probably the biggest gut punch of the entire career of the radio station. Was that underestimating my own hubris, I would say, and overestimating the audience's loyalty and the tribe. I mean, it was probably asking too much in that respect. Where's the video of the Sonic Temple shirts? Jeremy, where are the video of the Sonic Temple shirts? See, look, you got someone asking. That's Jeremy's fault. Courtney, okay, that's Jeremy's fault. So you get on Jeremy. He's in the chat right there. You would say, Jeremy, where's those damn videos? But yeah, that was probably the most crushing thing that happened. Besides, people dying. When Wendy died, that was really tough. When Andy died, that was really tough. When Mace died, that was really tough. It was just weird. It just sort of became this like, does this happen in businesses all the time? This many people die that work in a small business like this? And I don't know if it's because of the lifestyle we live, because, we were out a lot. We were out at shows. There was drinking going on. This wasn't involved in hardcore drugs or anything. But we definitely burned the candle at both ends. And it just, so it had its swings, man, its ups and downs. And we were definitely, party to the fact that all of our money came from us. We weren't backed by some large corporation, so we had no ancillary funding. It was all sales. It was all sales directives. So we had to figure out ways to be creative and innovative when it came to marketing and creating things. We had a monster that was trying to crush us on a daily basis. J-Core, which is now iHeart, on a daily basis tried to get rid of us. I mean, they literally said that they hired people to get us off the air. Randy Michaels at the time offered the old owner millions of dollars to just go away. And he's like, no, I won't do it. I'm sure he regrets that now, but hindsight's 2020. But it was a struggle all the time, and it was amazing that the loyalty that they did create with the audience was so strong. And it was hard to fathom that sometimes, to put it in perspective. If you weren't paying attention, you didn't see it. But like when I went out to go do like delivery sometimes, and where I'd find the listeners, in every part of the city, in Canal Winchester, in Dublin, in New Albany, in the Bottoms, in the Hilltop, in the South Side, on campus in Clintonville, and it just, the diversity of our audience amazed me. That I was like, oh, okay, so we don't just have this very homogenized, homogeneous sort of one type of listener, and that's what made it very different. And I've talked about this many times. We had a meeting about 10 years into the radio station, and I don't remember the whole context of it, but I just remember there was one question that was asked. There was a bunch of people at the time that were business people and a couple of radio people and all sorts of like lawyers and whatevers. Do we grow old with our audience, or do we let the listeners grow through us? And I personally, was like, we have to let the listeners pass through us, because knowing that if we grow old with our audience, then we have a set, life expectancy. Because as the music, if we sort of have this time block of like, we're going to play only this music from this genre, this era, that as we move, the audience is just going to go with us. And as they get old, they're just going to fall off. And eventually they're just, they're gone. So we're going to have to, keep pouring more into the funnel constantly. The only way to do that is by doing new music to let the audience pass through us. And was one of the things that was so weird was like when, right, speaking of sales, where's Don the Idea Guy, right? Don the Idea Guy, he's around. I talked to him the other day. But like when Andy died, everyone's like, the music changed. You guys went to this and this and this. I'm like, it wasn't so much the music. It was the fact that the industry changed. You know, there was sort of a shift in the industry in 2010. And as program directors are supposed to be prudent like a judge, impartial in a way that they don't have preferences. And that's impossible. It's a near impossibility to have a program director that doesn't have their own personal influence that is subject to their desires and their likes and their dislikes more than anything. I mean, there was bands that we would see sell out at, Promo West, the outdoor thing. 5,000 people would sell out. And it was a band we should be playing. But Andy was like, no, I don't like that type of music. We wouldn't play it. And be like, okay, fair enough. And that was his thing, when he came up with the idea to do, he knew Colin Gall very well from Watershed. And he was like, there was a new song out, and he's like, I'm just going to play this in regular rotation. And remember, he said that, and I was like, really? I was like, you think you could just play it? Like, I mean, it's a good song, but I was like a local band, there's no support or anything for it. Like, in the middle of the day, he's like, fuck, if I get fired, I get fired. So he played it. And again, it was like, it's just a suggestion. And that sort of was the birth. That was sort of the outcry of, oh, local music. We like that. Let's find more good stuff. And then we leaned into it and really pushed at it. And then, sort of got to the point where we were like, okay, well, we can get it sponsored and we should play it every hour. Not just at 9 o'clock when we were doing front stage. This was after Andy's gone. I was like, we should play this all the time. Let's do regular rotation of new music that is from local bands. Do the local gem, get it sponsored. Because again, we had to figure out ways to make money. We always had to find innovative ways to be creative, make money. And marketing was one of our biggest things, was making money, was marketing. The music was our vehicle. It really was. We were just a marketing company. In the grand scheme of things, we were a marketing company. And the vehicle was music. Just like, the tobacco industry, their product is addiction. And tobacco, nicotine, is the vehicle to addiction. So this was our addiction, was, the vehicle was music. That's what got everybody in the door. Then listen to the commercials and come to the events, come to the shows, sell tickets to this stuff. Go to this car dealership, or not really car dealership, but, go buy these products and go to support these people. And it did. That was the beauty of it. The audience was great. I mean, I can't even describe how sort of deeply embedded in the culture the audience became, because we gave them just this sort of open book. When I took over and added the big room, we could do more big rooms and allow more people to come to these shows. We pushed even harder for the record companies to do these, sort of impromptu free concerts before they would play that night, so that an audience could come and spend more time and connect with the radio station on a more personal level. That created tribe that was just unbelievable. And it really, really embedded the psyche of our fans, along with us, because we were sort of the island of misfit toys, is what I always said. Everyone was different. If you ever, think about it, you go to an accounting firm, all the accountants had to take, stats 220, and they all had to take, some class that, whether they went to UCLA or Ohio State or, some place in the middle of Iowa, they all took this specific class because they had to, because that just made them an accountant. We didn't have any of that. We were this ragtag sort of mishigosh of humans, that the only thing that was really the glue that bound us and the commonality was the passion for the music. And that was what was really, really so nice about it, is that it was the music that really connected everybody, more so than anything else. I mean, really, that was to me, that was sort of what the magic was about it, was that we were connected by the music. Because people, they dug the music, and it was cool to be in this entertainment business that was unique and rare, because it was this very sort of changing this very changing sort of scene that was going on that I can't explain of how it got to be where it was, but it was definitely I don't know, it was sort of the right place at the right time, you know, the way it existed, the way it came up through stuff, because as the city grew, we sort of grew with it and grew out of it, and that became sort of part of it as well. We survived not for lack of commitment by sort of the arts and everything else, but because of the Greater Coast Arts Council, the Diamond Cellar, some of these long time sponsors of the radio station stuck with us through thick and thin for decades. And they didn't care about ratings. It wasn't about the ratings. It was about the fact that we produced numbers, that when we would say, like, hey, come to this event, people would show up. And that's what really mattered. And that's what really, showed that we were unique in that position where other stations couldn't do that. Like NCI couldn't do that, with a cume that was 10 times ours, with this ridiculous, listenership, this monster signal. They couldn't do that. And Live Nation hated that they couldn't create that. They couldn't recreate that. But it was also because, we were hyper local and we had DJs that lived here. We were live on the air at night. So, I remember when Michael Jackson died, we were the only radio station that was live on the air. So when the TV stations wanted to go somewhere, there we are playing Michael Jackson music because there was a DJ, and everyone was down at the station, DJing, and we put special songs on. So TV stations came down because they wanted something to, talk about. But there was no other radio stations doing it because they couldn't go on the air until the next day because there was nobody alive down there. Everything had been pre-recorded from the night before. So voice tracked, so that was something that sort of uniqueness of it allowed us to be part of the community in a way that, everyone didn't experience it the same way. But as the staff, we did, because we got to live this thing in a way that it was 24/7. It never left. We were always doing it. We couldn't not do it. The music was on constantly in the station, and there was events to go to constantly. Literally every single day there would be something that you could go to. It was a concert at the Newport. It was a concert at the arena. It was a concert outside. It was a Friday night at Easton Town Center. It was a Thursday night at the Gateway Music Center. It was a Wednesday night at, Lucky's Bar. It was a Tuesday night at this place, and it was every single night. And it was hard. I mean, it was hard on the lives of people. Early on, the DJs had no vested interest in doing anything. They didn't go anywhere. None of them did anything. None of them got onto stage. None of them would do things. It took, years until finally then, we would do these events and the DJs would show up, and when they got to sort of understand it, then they wanted to be on stage. Then they wanted to do stage announcements. After shows, I would have the whole staff go down and high five everybody leaving one of our, CD 101 days or CD 125 days. Every staff member before the encore, outside, everybody high fives everybody that leaves the venue. There's 5,000 people. Your hand should be sore by the time you're done. And say thank you. Thank everybody for coming because they're the ones that are keeping you employed every single day. So that we intentionally created that desire by the audience for us, as we created the desire for ourselves. It was sort of the best of times and the worst of times in that respect, because it was great, but it was a lot all the time. We had to be on all the time. I think it took a toll on a lot of people's personal lives. family lives and everything else. And I think it was hard. I think it was hard for some people to justify how they did it or why they did it. But again, it was sort of the love of the music, and it was the love of this being in this industry that was very rare. Some of the stuff we did, we got to do that was just, we came up with the most ridiculous ideas sometimes. We really did. Right. The big rooms. Like, we came up with the most ridiculous ideas when the bands didn't want to do, let's go go-karting. Let's go bowling. Let's go play bingo. Let's go do this. And the bands were like, sure, why not? We'll give it a shot. We'll go have some fun. We'll go do something. And the record companies were, sure, whatever. As long as we were playing their music, they were making money and they were happy about it. It was interesting how we were sort of, there was the inside brackets and the outside brackets. The outside brackets was sort of the bands. You had the bands and you had the venues. And in between, you had management, you had record labels, you had radio station, you had promoter. And we kind of lived outside of the bracket. We basically, you can imagine a tour manager with a band. If we got in touch with the tour manager, it's like, hey, come by the radio station. We want to do this live performance. You've got some band that's been on the road for 6 weeks. It's like, wankers, we're not going to do that. Oh, mate, we're tired. What do we got? We're going to get in late. We're not going to be able to make that. Oh, we can't do this. We can't do this. And the promoter, they don't give a shit. They just want to make sure they need to be at the venue at 3 o'clock to do sound check. Their doors are at 5. They need to be ready to go on stage at 7. Blah, blah. That's all they cared about. So we had to go outside the brackets. We went right to the record labels, and we surpassed management because the record labels benefited from us playing the band. So the band basically would get talked to by the record label, and the label was the one who would be like, hey, you need to stop at this radio station. Whenever time you guys get in, leave the night before. Make sure you get to this station and do your duty. Go and do this live performance thing, blah, 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 blah. And I can't tell you how many times we would have bands that would come into the station that would kind of like, fine, we're coming to do this thing because we're sort of obligated to do it by the record company. But when they got there, they were like, oh, this is different. Okay. And we knew who they were. Oh, yeah, nice to see you guys. Hey, Arctic Monkeys, nice to see you. Oh, hey, okay. Oh, this is cool. Oh, this is okay. Wow, this is right. Well, come downstairs. The radio station's here. The radio station's downstairs. Oh, okay. And then sort of seeing where the studios were and seeing the big room, suddenly they softened, and there was this very different attitude, about us. And the bands were then, they sort of settled in and were more inclined to do it that day, and then a second time or a third or a seventh, for all that matter. They would come back and do it. And we definitely outkicked our coverage with bands. We had a lot of bands that came in that didn't go to other places, that didn't go to the iHeart in the city. Whereas, they're the ones with all the stations and all the money, and we're just these little guys. But also was because we invited everybody. We didn't care. They didn't need to have sold 1 million records or had 1 million downloads, Oh, you guys just released your first album. It's your first song. Sure, come in. We'll play you guys. We love you. You're awesome. Now, I can't tell you how many bands we broke, that we know we did. One of my favorite stories is the band Jungle, and the lead singer, Tom. He's this Irish English guy. And they were so funny because they came in and we did a low dose show for them. And the low dose show was great. That was a brainchild of us that we worked with Promo West and Scott Steinecker specifically. And Scott was all about it. And again, we could have never done this stuff. We didn't have a promoter that was local, that was able to be flexible enough to do this stuff. No, he knows he's going to book this band and he's going to have, 100 people show up. Okay, great. So how about this? So instead of spending, instead of having 100 people show up, don't charge $35. Charge $5. Charge 10. Okay, we'll charge $10, and we're going to promote the crap out of this thing. You advertise with us, you spend money, and we're going to go ahead and promote the shit out of these bands. All right, let's give it a shot. So when the band Jungle came in, they showed up, and I remember Tom was like, mate, this is crazy. I've never even heard of Columbus, Ohio. There's 800 people here. How is this even possible? Man, I don't even know. We were in Chicago last night. We played for 40 people, 40 in Chicago. He's like, Columbus, Ohio? How is this even possible? And I remember my words were real simple. We play you. And that's what it was. We played them before we were pushed by a record label. Oh, this band Jungle is going to break. We came across them. We're like, these guys are great. So we started playing them. Then we would talk to Promo West and they would talk to us and like, hey, we're going to bring this band in. Okay, when do you want to bring them in? Well, we're going to promote the crap out of it. So instead of 40 people in Chicago, because there was no radio station playing them, Q101 wasn't playing them, XRT wasn't playing them, we were playing them. We had them in normal rotation. And by the time the other radio stations even figured it out 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, we were done with that song. We already moved on to their next one or their third by that time to introduce the audience to a whole different part of the ecosystem of that band. And we did that for tons. Fits in the Tantrums, Manchester Orchestra. We sold more tickets in Columbus, Ohio for Manchester Orchestra than they did in their hometown. I mean, how crazy is that? But it's because we played them. And that was sort of this reoccurring theme for a lot of these bands that came through early. Like the 1975, I remember the first time they came through, they made us do everything in black and white. They were so pretentious. We were like, really? Really? We have to do everything in black and white? Like, seriously? Okay. So put filters on the cameras and okay, and got it. We were just like, whatever. But then after that, they came back and they were like, oh yeah, we'll do anything you want. And they came, even when they were doing like outdoor festival, when there was 20,000 people, they did a big room because they were cool with that. They were like, no, you guys were always there for us. I was like, right. Even though, the very first time we laughed and it was a little pretentious. But I think that was sort of the beauty of all of it. The beauty of the radio station was, crazy. Oh, change 1025 to 929. Well, I mean, that the story of the station changing, and I'll only go so far. So CD 101 started from a company out of New Jersey called Video Services. And basically they were what you would consider like house flippers. They would look in markets that were underutilized. The FCC has very strict rules about radio stations, where they can be, the size they can be, class they can be, A, B, C, D. Like Class A is small, Class B is big, like Class B can be monsters, and Class A's are usually tiny. And they found that in Grove City, Ohio, back in the late 80s, there was a space they could add this radio station, 101.1 FM on the frequency, 3,000 watts, which is tiny in the grand scheme of things. If you're ever curious, you want to see what signal looks like, there's a thing you can just Google. It's called Radio Locator. Just go to Radio Locator and put in Columbus, Ohio, and it'll show you every single radio station in the market. And then you can like click onto every single one of the frequencies, and it'll show you where the tower is, and it'll show you a circle of where their signal is. So CD 101 basically sucked when it came to the northern part of the city because it was down south, and with a 3,000 watt signal, it was this kind of like, teeny little like, It didn't really have a lot of kick. So in the north end, it sucked. Plain and simple. So, where we had a lot of people that wanted to listen, they couldn't get a good signal because it was a weak signal up there. And then to the south was cornfields. So, yay. But we survived and struggled and lived with that for a long time. And that was from 1990 when Video Service got sold to a local business guy. And he bought the signal. And he's the one that kind of let us loose. Go do this thing. Make this work. Because he was a music guy. And he just he loved the idea of radio. And he was sort of make this work. So everyone tried our best to make it work. But he just, after doing it for plenty of years, in 2010, he had the offer he couldn't refuse. So he sold the frequency of 101.1 FM to The Ohio State University. And that was pretty much the end of 101 because, it went to the university. So in the interim, we found this other signal of 102.5 FM from Zanesville, Ohio. Now, it was broadcast. Well, the rules were a little weird for a minute. There was a thing called the home office rule. So you couldn't do what you do nowadays. You couldn't be remote. You couldn't have an office in Columbus, Ohio, and broadcast in Michigan. You had to have an office, at least some semblance of an office in the broadcast zone. And where the signal originated from was not Zanesville. That's where the ownership was. But where the signal came from was Baltimore, Ohio. And it was up on this hill. And it was like a Class B license. And it was a big, good-sized stick. But the problem was that it was still far enough away that there were shadows. FM frequencies have shadows. So while the 101 signal had deficiencies, the 102.5 signal had some deficiencies too, just in different places because it wasn't right there. If you go look at some of the other stations, you'll see that their towers are right downtown. So the circle is right above the city. Ours is sort of, again, off to the side. So 102.5 was a rental from this WHIZ in Zanesville, Ohio. And that rental, only lasted for so long. That was the real big impetus of doing that crowdfunding, was to try and purchase that license, to try and find the funding to own that frequency and then be able to continue doing it 102.5 forever. And when that didn't happen, when we couldn't get the funding, eventually the lease, the time brokerage agreement ran out and they did not want to renew. And that was the end of that. So that sort of came to a screeching halt. And then the 92.9 one, we were off the air for a very brief period of time, and sort of someone came and said, hey, I know this. I know a guy. He's got this thing. It's a station. It's a thing. And you can do this and this and this. And we talked to these guys and, we're like, okay, we can make this work. And back on the air we went. And, 92.9 was born. And we continued doing what we were doing, again, with the idea of we need to own it. The leasing thing, all the way back to the day from when we were doing it with, 102.5, we knew that was not our path to longevity. That was not what's going to, right, Mom would say, we're going to knock you out. Exactly it. Don't call it a comeback. But we knew that was not going to be the be-all, end-all. Owning it was the only thing that was going to give us longevity. That was it. And that was sort of the mission that, we tried to focus on. And, that did not come to fruition. And, when it crashed down, it crashed epically the last time. The 101 transition to 102.5, that happened, oddly enough, that happened on July 1st of 2010. It was 18 days before Andy died. Never forget that. We all went to a place called the Round Bar, and the owner was like, hey, so I'm selling the station. And we were like, what? Like, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And we were like, what? And that was July 1st. And then, Andy died 18 days later. So it all just, the ratings changed and everything just sort of crashed around us. And it was like, wow, if we can survive this, we can survive anything. I mean, that was just like, that was like a nuking of us. It really was, in 2010. And no one thought, believe me, there was plenty of people that thought there was no way you're getting up from this. Sort of like, stay down, you're down, just stay down. We were like, no. And I was like, no, and the support of my family and was just like, do it. If you think you can do it, do it. And I'm like, I can do it. I can do this. I've done this now for a long time and I can fucking do this. So we made a go of it with, 102.5 for, 10 solid years. But never could get over that hump, never could get it purchased, because that's what we needed. And then, the 92.9 thing, that when that imploded, that was pretty much the end. There was no way to come back from that, because there was nowhere to go. That was the real thing. If there was somewhere to go, we probably would have given it a shot. We probably would have said, sure, we can do this one more time. But there was nowhere to go. And going virtual just wasn't going to work, because the mortar and bricks is what made us real. That was the real of it. The ability for us to be so real, because anyone can be virtual in the grand scheme of things. You really can. But for us to be able to be real, this existence, that's what made us, viable. Viable for the public, viable for the bands, viable for the promoters, viable for the advertisers. But virtual, we weren't going to make it. There was no way. The machine we had created was hungry, and it ate a lot. It consumed a lot of time and energy. And the problem was that the virtual world did not produce that same energy for us. So there was no way that we could survive. We tried, we gave it the old college try, but there was no way. And the staff knew it. The staff could see it. The blood was in the water. There was no way that we could survive this same sort of, ongoing 24/7, 365 promotional marketing machine with this different audience. Because the idea of radio, what made it work so well was that it was free, it was transportable, and it was instantaneous. That was the key. You didn't have to have a subscription to anything. You could just pop it on in your car. You could have your little boombox. Radio was this free thing that was available to anybody, anywhere, anytime. As long as you're within our little circle of listening, that's what made it work. But streaming it, you had to be connected. You had to be online. You had to use minutes. You had to, have Alexa play me CD 92.9. So that end was epic. And it came at a price, for everybody. Nobody escaped that unscathed, unfortunately. It's easy to kind of forget it. It's been 2 years down the road, but it still exists. The sting is still there. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. I've come to the recent assumption. I was out the other night. I was emceeing this thing for John Prine at Natalie's. And someone said, "So what are you doing these days?" And I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, "Whatever the fuck I want." And they're like, "Good for you." Because I was like, I have no answer. It's like, what exactly am I doing? I work, I changed my lifestyle. I don't go out like I used to. Everything's changed. It's been this very, very weird transition, of existence. And I can't, it's almost indescribable in a way that I can't describe to anybody. My family gets to witness it, but it's sort of indescribable. I don't see people that I saw every day for 20 years, like at all. I haven't seen some people for 2 years that I worked with. And that's all right. I saw it from a distance because I watched it happen to other people. And I said, well, if I ever get disconnected, if I'm ever uncoupled from the station, then I will be in that exact same position as that person. And so being uncoupled in that position, did the cheerleader get saved? Is Columbus going to be okay? I don't know. Right. Save the cheerleader, save the world. Thanks, George. I love that. That's always said. I mean, I'm still the cheerleader, but did I save the world? I don't know. You'll have to tell me. I can't make that assumption whether I did or didn't, I still run into people. Like I was in Lowe's the other day and someone's like, "You look familiar." And I said, "Randy, you're the radio station guy. Oh my God, I got to tell you how much, blah, blah, blah." And, I get that. I'm just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's probably hard to talk about." I said, "No." I said, "It's fine." I said, "At this point, it was fine from the day it stopped. It'll always be fine because it's part of what it was. It's who I am and what I was, what I am, and what I continue to be. So how can I not be happy, sad, elated, upset, all of those things about it? It is what it is, Right. Right. Yes. Well, the guest DJs, the guest DJs were amazing. That was one of the things that we wanted to do. That was, again, it was always trying to connect with the audience in any way we could. Right. Change is inevitable. It is. We always try to do things that connected with the audience. That was something really important. That hyper local, that people would talk about. It was easy to talk about, but it was much harder to do because you really had to buy into it. And we did. Brian Phillips bought into it. When would do this stuff with the marching bands, and he still got into that stuff. And some of the DJs, the way they understood the local market so well because they embedded themselves in it. And that was the beauty of it, though, because you could go out and go see Brian Phillips on a kayak on the river, because that's what he said he was going to do. And there he is doing it, so he wasn't from out of market, not be able to, do these things. So that was part of it. So it was a crazy, crazy adventure. It really was. It's sort of like Frank said, I regrets, I have a few. I did it my way. And, I kind of did it my way, did it everybody's way. Can't make everybody happy. I'm not tequila. But, we tried to. We tried to make everybody happy. And I think we succeeded for the most part. It was definitely an epic adventure, to say the very least. And, do I miss it? Sure, I miss it, because it was exactly that. It was an epic adventure. So, when do you not miss doing an adventure? I don't know. It didn't feel like work, even though I worked 100-hour weeks. It didn't feel like that. Right. Hanging out in the big room, having a Prosecco with Mace. Exactly. God rest his soul. His anniversary is next Saturday. Passing of Mace. It'll be 6 years. And that starts it. That sort of starts the passing zone. The passing zone. So that's how I got into all this then. So that's how I got into this, So I then stopped doing as much of the history stuff, and I started to lean into more music stuff, June, I was still talking about, in 1908, the meteor of Russia, 117 years ago. That was June 30th, By the time I was into, by the time I was into September, now I'm taking copious notes. Now I've got copious notes in 1964. Supremes. Baby Love was number 2 in the U.S. in 1964. 1967, The Who were on TV for the first Small Brothers and the Big Bang. 1964, Rolling Stones had I have no idea what my handwriting says there. 1967, The Doors were banned on Ed Sullivan. Girl Who Couldn't Get Much Higher. So that was September 17th. So I started then was really leaned into more of the music stuff. Because again, it intrigued me. That's what I liked about the radio station so much was the music. I went to a lot of concerts growing up. Growing up in New Jersey, I went to a lot of shows. Sort of that was the thing. It was there. That was the thing. It was very, very accessible. We could jump on the train. I could be at Madison Square Garden. We could be at CBGB's. We could be at some little clubs. We could be down the shore at Asbury Park. So all of these bands always went through the big city. So we would always take, the group of us, 8, 10 of us would jump on a train and go see a show. So I could see lots of concerts growing up. So I loved live music. So that love just continued, and then sort of getting into the radio station, I was like, okay, this is great. I get to see music all the time. So then I'm sort of like, okay, well, I'm not doing the same stuff, but I missed that connection to music big time. So I was like, well, how do I do this? Because I don't have the same access, because I never paid for tickets. I'm not trying to be a brag about it, but that was sort of one of the perks. One of the perks of the station was that staff got to go to stuff. We went to events. We went to, we got VIP for everything. So going to shows was easy. Great. Get to go to a concert. So it sort of just became this afterthought of, we get to go to these shows because that's how it works. You sort of take it for granted at one point, that we get to go to shows. So not being at the station, I don't get to go to shows as much, so I don't get to take it for granted. So sort of being cathartic about it and thinking back on the tickets that I see and, the shows that I'm talking about. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh, I went to that show. Or, oh yeah, I remember that tour. Or yes, that I remember what happened that day, in when the things that were, from like the 1990 on, we talk about, when Jeff Buckley went missing, like, yeah, we remember that. Michael Jackson died. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember this. I remember that. When Johnny Cash died, when this person died, when this person died. All of those artistic things, because as long as they were somehow connected to the radio station, then it worked. How long are you going to do this? How long am I going to do what? This particular rambling, Todd? I don't know. You want to tell me? Or in general, how am I going to do like the Randsanity thing, which is the question you're asking? That I don't know. You'll have to be more specific in your asking of that. If you're asking how long am I going to do this, as in this episode, probably another 28 minutes. No, normal time, because I am going to go back and do my normal format in a few minutes of births and deaths. I've got a couple of things to talk about. But then how long am I going to do this in general? I don't know. Am I going to do this every night from now until eternity? I don't know. I've talked to Jeremy about how do we monetize this? How can I do this and have more guests? How can I do this so that I can get paid to do this, so I can continue to do this? That would be great. Because right now, the only thing that costs me is time and effort. But, it would be great if I could figure out a way to make this something where lots of people watch all the time. That would be stupendous, But that's easier said than done, as anybody that does any of this stuff knows. When I talk to somebody that does this all the time, they're like, well, the biggest thing is consistency. Like, you have to sort of be able to just keep doing it, because a lot of people quit too early. Well, today's 1 year. I haven't quit yet, I know. I don't know. I mean, I will continue doing this until it's no longer viable to do. Right now I've sort of narrowed it down where I don't have something that occupies my time for the most part between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So I do my research then. And then 11 o'clock, I do the show, and it usually lasts 35 minutes. So, I'm talking about 90 minutes of my life. It's not a horrible thing. If I got a job tomorrow that was in the music industry, I would continue to do it. If I got a job tomorrow that, I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I had to commute for an hour and, staying up late doing this, I don't know. I don't know if I'd have to shift times or if I'd be like, I can't do it anymore. It's not worth it. I don't know. Right, exactly. I'll keep doing it until I stop. That's it. But again, I'm still trying to figure out what it is I'm doing. I've kind of honed it down to, I do the sort of intro. Then I do this sort of, stuff, the stories, the current stuff, tour stuff, band stuff. Then I sort of do the historical stuff, going back to the 60s, talking about bands that are kind of relevant to the subject. Then births and deaths with both actors and artists. And then I just kind of wrap it up, and I keep that around 30 minutes or so. So I've sort of got it down to this thing. I've got some people, I've got some friends that do the editing of the shorts in New York. And they're the ones who post the stuff onto YouTube and TikTok as the shorts. And again, we're trying to, always trying to sort of figure out what works best, what sort of, hone in what is the things that are going to give it longevity, so that people will watch not just the live, but it's also the big thing is trying to find the little snippets. So if it's creating these moments where I can say, hey, on this day, or here's this soundbite story that then can be consumed later, that's where it really, really will catch on if I can find this consumption thing, because, it's sort of like a podcast, but it's not. It's sort of a vlog. But, can we have these individual moments, these shorts, for a better term, that can be consumable later by people is sort of, I guess, the real key, Todd. Like, what is that thing that I can create that's a consumable short? And I've got Jeremy, who's here. Maybe he's left. I don't know. Who's, it's what he does. He's a producer. He owns a production company, and he's very smart when it comes to that stuff. And I've got, Kieran and Kenzie in New York, that look at the stuff. They're from here, and, so, right. It doesn't go to sleep anymore. Thank you. Well, it does. I've just gotten better at seeing it go to sleep, and I move out of the way and I go to the other camera. So see, I could do it to this camera, or I can go to this one. Nope. That one's turned off. See, I knew better. But that's why I moved, because that camera turned off. So I'm just figuring that stuff out. But yeah, I mean, I keep adding things to the production of the show, trying to increase the quality. We did some shooting when we were at Sonic Temple. She asked, like, where are the T-shirt videos? Because we interviewed people with their T-shirts. And it was a first attempt. But I think it's something that could have legs that we could make shorts out of. I'm just here for the shirts. That'll be the segment. I'm just here for the shirts. Because again, some people had some seriously obnoxious T-shirts on, like ones that I was like, okay, I don't, some of them were completely tasteless. They were funny. Some of them were completely tasteless and weren't funny. And some of them were beyond tasteless and were offensive. I'm like, oh, no, they're not going to choose that one. No, that's bordering on, and someone's going to complain about that. Be like, yeah, you're going to get banned for that, for something, because it's just, yeah, that's no longer tasteless. That's just offensive. But some of them were funny. So, and the people that were wearing were all happy to give stories because they're at a concert and everyone's in a good mood. And, they wore the shirt for a reason. They didn't just throw it on. There's a reason you put that shirt on. It says, I'm with stupid. So who's stupid? It's like, she is, he is. It's like, okay, so you're both with each other. You're both stupid. Got it. Thanks so much. Where are you from? Great. Go back to Cleveland. But that's, again, trying to find these things. And it's hard because, living in a bubble, because I kind of do this in a bubble. If you think about it, I'm down in the basement in this teeny little studio that I kind of improvised. And it's, it's what we used when we did the live performances during the pandemic for the bands. I just, kind of put everything back together in a way that, like, okay, this kind of works the way it was. And it operates similarly in that fashion, so I can broadcast and make it work fine. What Jeremy came down as my first guest, and he was like, oh, this is smaller than I thought. I'm like, well, yeah, the camera, it gives us this illusion of depth that doesn't really exist. It's very small. It's this tiny little desk I stand behind. And, don't try not to bump into the Death Star too often over here, which I've done plenty of times, and I've smashed many pieces on the floor. But that's the way it goes. So, yeah, I just, I will continue doing this until I don't. But I'm going to continue morphing it. And I think, now that I've done this for a year, I'm going to, I think, shift and try different things now more than ever. The editing part, the worst part about me is that I want to be Cecil B. DeMille when it comes to production. I can't shoot something and then be happy with it later. Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I should have shot this B-roll. Oh, I should have done. Oh, and I overthink the production of editing, and then wind up getting in such a quagmire, and I spend so much time that, okay, I just spent like 3 hours editing a 30-second video that I should have literally just had AI do, and it would have been done in 12 seconds. So that's what I need to do. I just need to get over myself in all honesty. I just need to get over myself and, just sort of step aside. It's sort of Solomon's paradox. I talk to my friends about that all the time. Like, Solomon was really good at giving advice, but horrible at taking his own advice. Well, I'm good at that. I'm really good at giving advice sometimes, but I'm really horrible at my own advice sometimes. So I'm trying to be better at that. I'm cognitively really, really trying to be better at, not taking my own advice sometimes and paying attention to that. So yeah, so editing is one of those things. So I'm going to try and be that. Right. Yes. The boiler, you won't have to worry about the boiler kicking in. Thank you so much. That's true. You remember all the idiosyncratic things about that. That's correct. So yes, see, because you were here in the beginning when the boiler would kick in and there was no decorations and the microphone sucked. Hopefully the microphone's better now. But yeah, I think that's where I really want to try and lean into is almost this Mystery Science 3000 kind of thing where I can put the fourth camera can be literally the videos of things that I shoot that I can then post as shorts later. Where I can post those things, show you, sort of talk about them, and then show them later. And then be able to put them up. Because I think that could be something that's fun and adventurous because I don't know. I mean, I think, again, sort of finding what that niche is, I don't know. And I guess that's the real story. I don't know what the niche is. So anyway, yes, thank you. I'm glad the sound is better than it was because right now I'm using a much better microphone. I've got an actual studio mic, which is, this is what the DJs used with the windscreen that still smells like cigarette smoke because somebody was a smoker that was a DJ. So I've got that going for me. But, that's how that works. Okay, so if I put this camera back on there, Todd, see, now I can go back over to there. See? Because I turned the camera back on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of stories because you know what? That's kind of what I do. So wherever my tonight is, here's my tonight. Episode 365. 0 days to go to doing it 1 year. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you don't already. All right. So first story we're going to do. On June 1st, 1999, Blink-182 released their breakthrough album, Enema of the State. The album remains a fan favorite for its bold mix of themes. The tracks range from Blink's usual adolescent antics like Anthem, to the sweet young love of Going Away to College, to the serious and dark moments of Adam's Song. To celebrate 27 years, here are 4 favorite tracks aided by the description by Tom DeLonge, who wrote Enema Era Tour Program. First is Don't Leave Me. After the persistent whine of Tom DeLonge's vocals on the opening track, Matt Hoppus possesses an almost dulcet tone in comparison on the following song, Don't Leave Me. Additionally, the lyrics become a bit of a palate cleanser with Dumpweed, the incel anthem before incels were a widespread phenomenon. Instead of expressing a need for a girl that I can train, Hoppus makes a quiet plea for a girl to keep liking him even if he acts like a scumbag. When Blink-182 was touring for Enema of the State, DeLonge would often write the meaning of their songs in the tour programs. For Don't Leave Me, he theorized what Hoppus was going for with the lyrics. I think it's just that a feeling when you're really in love with a girl, you're just thinking, please, 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 don't stop liking me. Aliens Exist is already a favorite Blink-182 track, but it became even more better with the added context of DeLonge's obsession with UFOs. In the same tour program explanations, DeLonge wrote about the Aliens Exist, noting that he wrote it from the perspective of someone who's seen the truth. I wrote a song about a guy talking about aliens as though he'd had a weird experience, but nobody believes him. They think he's full of shit, he wrote, but he's directing his angst toward the government because the government knows there's something going on. But I'm one of those freaks that really believe the stuff exists. I think if anybody out there does a little bit of research, they'll find that they are on my side. Going Away to College. is one of those rare Blink-182 songs that is purely romantic for the sake of romance. It's surprisingly innocent for the band that put Dysentery Gary on the same album. But it, for one thing, is true. It's the enema of the state contains multitudes. Mark wrote the song as though you were a boy leaving your girlfriend after years of school together. Writes DeLong. After high school, when you're leaving to go to college, and what do you say to that girl that you've been in love with for all these years, but now you have to leave for years? I don't think it gets more romantic than that. It's one of my favorite songs on the record, and the way the lyrics flow with the music, I think it's a really sad, emotional song. It's something a lot of people go through. Wendy Clear. According to Tom DeLonge's tour notes, Mark Hoppus wrote Wendy Clear about a girl he had a crush on in 1999 who was basically off limits. Allegedly, she worked at the record label MCA at the time. The song had a subtle vulnerability in its lyrics as Hoppus expressed a desire to play with fire, just to talk to the woman freely. It's about more than just striking out, touching more of the grief that one might and that they ever have been. Mark liked her, but he really couldn't date her because she was a very influential person in the music industry, wrote DeLong. So them dating was a very tricky situation. I wish it didn't have to be so bad. It's so the song goes. However, near the end of the track, he decides to move on, accepting that pursuing a relationship is a bad idea. Enema of the State, 27 years old today. Blink-182. We got to see them last summer when we were on the beach at See Here Now, and that was an amazing show. We loved that. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Really enjoy that. It's a great venue. Oh, this one's funny. So, Weird Al Yankovic, if you've never seen Weird Al Yankovic, go see him. I think he's coming to the fair this summer. He's worth seeing. Just as a novelty act alone, but the guy's pretty damn creative. He really is. He's definitely got talent, okay? So while Weird Al's parody songs Eat It from 1984 was definitely an early breakout of his career, it appears on his second album, Weird Al Yankovic in 3D. It dropped the year after Michael Jackson released Beat It as a single. The success of the song would allow Weird Al to parody Jackson again in 1988, but it also carried weight with it when he wanted to parody another big hit later. Speaking with Conan O'Brien in 2016, Weird Al revealed what it was like to have a Michael Jackson parody as his breakout hit. Additionally, he describes meeting Jackson for the first time, a moment that was achieved because Jackson actually enjoyed Al's parodies. There's a document somewhere with Michael Jackson's signature next to mine saying we are the co-writers of Eat It, Al said when asked about getting Jackson's blessing to make the song. It's a legal thing. When asked if he got to meet Jackson, Al said, I did, 2 or 3 times. He, Michael, was very nice, very soft-spoken, but it's not like you're meeting a human. Expressing this with an audible question mark in his voice, Al earned chuckles from the studio audience. I don't mean this in a bad way. Al was very quick to clarify, but it was so much sort of bigger than life. He was so iconic, it's almost like you're meeting an alien. Or you're meeting a statue from Madame Tussauds. Like, you can't possibly be real. Conan O'Brien then asked if Jackson ever invited Al to his infamous California home, Neverland Ranch. Al chuckled and said he did. Then looked like he was choosing the best possible way to continue. I think it was at this point where it wouldn't have been cool to go, Al landed on, with some awkward chuckling from Al in the audience. O'Brien decided maybe I should leave this alone. As for the impact that Eat It had on Weird Al's career, he said he began to celebrate basically overnight. He went from being a faceless jerk from LA that made silly songs to being a very well-known jerk from LA that made silly songs. Of course, joking aside, Eat It was Al's first top 40 hit in the US, peaking at number 12 on the charts. When it went on to number 1 in Australia, it remained his highest charting single again until White and Nerdy in 2006. So yes, if you do get a chance to see Weird Al Yankovic, I suggest you go. He's fun. He's very fun. He's quirky, he's weird, but the creativity is what really makes it work. So, I had to read this one because I thought this one was hilarious. Attendants of London's BST Hyde Park Festival have the opportunity to help set the funniest Guinness Book of World Record ever this year. All they have to do is show up to Pitbull's headlining set in a bald cap. Yes, bald cap. The whole thing started with a BBC One radio breakfast host, Greg James, suggesting the idea per Music News. Later, Pitbull and the festival organizers shared an Instagram post confirming these plans. In case you missed it, we're going for a Guinness Book of World Records titled Mr. Worldwide, the post reads. And we need a squad of legendary volunteers to help us make it official. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, count that shiny-headed baldness in the crowd and help us make history. In a separate post, Pitbull put his full support behind the plan. Guinness Book of World Records, get ready for the all-bald ease. They'll be putting it down on July 10th at Hyde Park, he wrote. Every time you put on a bald cap, you know you're about to have the time of your lives. Thank you, Dale. Darcy Jackson, director of talent for AEG Presents Europe Festivals, added, we're so excited to host Mr. Worldwide, record attempt at Pitbull's show in BST Hyde Park. We've broken a few world records in the past, but this will truly be the time of our lives. Come one, come all, come bald. Additionally, Guinness World Records adjudicator Will Munford offered a comment. We look forward to adjudicating this record at BST Hyde Park with Pitbull, he said. What better way to be a part of something amazing than come together with other fans to celebrate your favorite artist? Spoken like a true adjudicator. And I think that's probably the first time I actually heard adjudicator was maybe in one of the, I don't know, was that in, with Keanu Reeves? Was that where they first used adjudicator? I don't know. This is not the first time Pitbull has encouraged his fans to show up to his shows dressed as him. In a June 2025 comment to the BBC, he admitted he gets a kick out of it. Every time at a show, I let them know that when they put on their bald cap, hope you're here to have the time of your lives. It feels deeper than just music, he said. It's the ultimate trophy to be able to go on stage and see the hard work that you put into the music. I've been doing this game for 25 years now, and to see every demographic, everybody dressing up at the shows is priceless. I did see Pitbull when he was here at the Wonder Bus Festival, and I will say it was kind of funny. He was entertaining, to say the very least. Mr. Worldwide Pitbull. Just saying, I didn't hate it. It was kind of hilarious. Not gonna lie. Metallica! After more than 4 decades together, they're still setting records. This week while on tour, the legendary trash band released that they've landed a new unprecedented achievement. They now hold the record for the biggest show ever at the Olympiastadion in Berlin, Germany. On May 30th, 2026, 2 nights ago, they played a show to over 94,000 fans. According to a social media post, night after night, city after city, Metallica family is bringing it. The band wrote in a post thanking their fans for making the moment happen. That's pretty damn big. 94,000 people. Wow. In 2025, Metallica's North American tour made a big impact as well. And quite literally, the band actually caused a whole earthquake to happen during a show in Lane Stadium in Blacksburg, Virginia. After the concert, the Virginia Tech Seismological Observatory announced that they had registered 2 tremors during the band's set. Both came while Metallica played Enter Sandman. It was believed that the tremors were caused by the 60,000 members of the audience jumping in unison throughout the song. I could see that. Currently, Metallica is touring overseas, but later this year, they'll be back to the United States for a run of shows at the state-of-the-art Las Vegas Sphere. Yes, we want to go to the Sphere. The band will bring on their no-repeat weekend show, Light Burns Fast, for 24 shows starting October, including Halloween night. So if I was going to go, that's the night I would want to go. Thank you, Sphere fans. Wow, what a week. The band wrote in a message after tickets went on sale and quickly sold out. We are so appreciative and grateful to all of you for incredible response to our upcoming Life Burns Faster residency at Sphere in Las Vegas. We are completely and utterly blown away and cannot believe that we will have 24 amazing nights on stage there, all thanks to you and a record-breaking week. At this point in time, we will not be adding additional shows, the band continued, but we are hoping to offer more in the future. In the meantime, we hear you loud and clear that the ticket buying process was often frustrating and not always smooth. Working with our partners to improve this experience and offer remedies to the next time around. Ticketmaster. We're looking forward to a very exciting 2026, Metallica message added, starting off with seeing many of you in Europe this spring and summer as the M72 tour hits the road again in May. Before we know it, we'll be exploring new frontiers along with fans from all around the world in Las Vegas, and we can't wait. I would want to go Halloween night. That would be the night to go, personally. So, if anyone wants to take me Halloween night, I'm available. Just saying. Just saying. All right. What happened on this day? I'll do this quickly because I've been droning on now for 1 hour and 49 minutes. Good Lord. All right, let's see. Jukebox Jury, no. Johnny Horton, no. Elvis Presley was number 1 in the UK singles chart with Surrender, his 8th UK number 1 on this day. It was based on the 1911 Italian song Return to Sorrento. 1963, Leslie Gore started a 2-week run at number 1, and you know this if you know this song. Come on. It was a single by Quincy Jones. Then a staff producer at Mercury Records produced It's My Party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if you knew what I knew. Ba, 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 ba. 1964, the Rolling Stones were met by over 500 fans as they arrived at the BA Flight 505 at Kennedy Airport for their debut U.S. tour. The Stones held a press conference and then guested on their prestigious fifth Beatle DJ Murray, The Kay Show. The first date took place on the 5th of June in San Bernardino, California. Right on, right on, right on. 1967, David Bowie released his self-titled debut album. 2 singles were released from the album, Rubber Band and The Laughing Gnome. The album's failure cost Bowie his record contract with Durham Records, who dropped him in April of 1968. What? In 1968 as well, Simon & Garfunkel went on to number 1 on the U.S. singles chart with Mrs. Robinson, featured in the Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft film The Graduate. The song earned the duo a Grammy Award for the Record of the Year in 1969. Right on. 1971, the two-room shack in Tupelo, Mississippi, where Elvis Presley was born on January 8th, 1935, was opened to the public as a tourist attraction. Two-room shack. In 1972, the Eagles released their debut studio album. The album was recorded at the UK at London's Olympic Studio with producers Glenn Johns and was an immediate success. David Geffen was invited Johns to see the band perform at a club called Toluga in Boulder, Colorado in December of 1971. Johns, however, was not impressed by the band's live performance, thinking that it sounded confused and lacking cohesion. So Johns declined to produce the album at first. He produced 3 top 40 singles, Take It Easy, Witchy Woman, and Peaceful, Easy Feeling. Right? Who knew? Now, see, this is why, doing dumb shit. Former Soft Machine drummer Robert Watt broke his spine after attempting to leave a party by climbing down a drain pipe and falling 3 stories. That's an Irish exit. It left Wyatt permanently crippled and confined to a wheelchair. Yeah, don't do that. That's not the way this should work. Just saying. In 1975, the Rolling Stones kicked off their biggest U.S. tour at Louisiana State University. The tour would take in 45 shows in 26 cities. Guitarist Ronnie Wood joined the Stones on tour for the first time, replacing Mick Taylor. And the first time he did that was on his birthday, because today is Ron Wood's birthday of the Rolling Stones. So happy birthday to Ron Wood. How's that one for you? Bob Marley and the Wailers in 1977 played the first of 4 nights at the Rainbow Theatre in London. There were 6 nights booked at the Rainbow, but the last 2 shows were canceled due to serious toe injury Marley received in a friendly football game with French journalists just before the tour's start in Paris. Subsequently, the tour's second leg to the United States was postponed and then canceled. That's no bueno. In 1981, the first issue of heavy metal magazine, Kerrang! Was published as a special pullout by UK Weekly Music Sounds. AC/DC had the front cover plus features on Motorhead, Girl Socks, and Saxon. AC/DC coming. We're going to see them here soon. Just about 6 weeks away. 6 weeks away. On this day in 1985, Prince and the Revolution started a 3-week run at number 1 on the U.S. album chart with their 7th studio album, Around the World in a Day. 2 of its 4 singles reached the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100, Raspberry Beret and Pop life. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Baby Spice. Aww. Baby Spice in 1997 arrived back in the UK at Heathrow Airport in a wheelchair with a broken ankle after falling off her towering platform shoes while filming a promotional appearance for a Turkish TV show. What? I mean, I know it's hard to walk in high heels, ladies, but you don't need to break your damn ankles over it. That's crazy. 2003, Paul Gray, the bassist of Slipknot, was arrested on drugs and drunk driving charges after he collided with a car after going through a red light in his hometown of Des Moines, Iowa. Gray, who wears a pig mask on stage, then tried to write a check for $1,000 to the other driver, who then called the police. Gray failed 2 alcohol tests at the scene and was arrested for possession of marijuana, cocaine, and drug paraphernalia, as well as drunk driving. Hey man, here's a check for $1,000. Sorry I wrecked your car. It's cool. We're all good, right? No? You gonna call the cops? I can write you a check for $1,000. Maybe not. Maybe not. In 2005, Jack White married British model Karen Elson. The wedding took place in a canoe on the Amazon River in Manaus, Brazil, and was officiated by a shaman. Of course it was. The couple first met after she appeared in the White Stripe music video, The Blue Orchid. The couple divorced in 2011. Okay, so they lasted for 6 years, you know. What do you expect? You got married in a canoe in the Amazon. Just saying. 2006, the 1994 debut album by Oasis, Definitely Maybe, was voted the greatest album of all time in a survey to mark 50 years of the official UK album chart. The Beatles came in second and third place with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Revolver. OK Computer by Radiohead was fourth, and What's the Story Morning Glory by Oasis was voted fifth. So they were first and fifth. There you go. In 2013, Modern Vampires of the City by Vampire Weekend went on to number 1 on the U.S. album chart. Their sophomore album, Contra, also debuted at number 1 in 2010, making this the first time an independent rock band had entered the number 1 with 2 consecutive releases. Modern Vampires of the City also shattered the previous record for the first week's vinyl sales, moving nearly 10,000 units. Seems like a reasonable amount, I guess, right? In 2017, the sale of Jerry Garcia's favorite guitar, Wolf, raised millions of dollars for a civil rights group when auctioned at a custom-made guitar fetching over $3.2 million. It was bought at a New York charity concert by Brian Halligan, CEO of marketing group HubSpot and a lifelong fan of the band. As a deadhead, he said the money raised would go to the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to buy a guitar. Just saying. 2025, Sabrina Carpenter was number 1 on the UK chart with Short and Sweet, the 6th studio album by the American singer. 2 singles, Espresso and Please, 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 preceded the album's release. Both topped the Billboard Global 200 chart and exposed Carpenter to wider commercial success. The album also debuted at number 1 on a US Billboard chart 200. Yes, yes. Born on this day, Ron Wood of Rolling Stones, 79 years old. Alan Wyde of Depeche Mode, 67 years old. Simon Gauld of The Cure, 66 years old. Mike Joyce of The Smiths, 63 years old. Man, that's a lot of British English rock alternative band right there. 52 years old today, Alanis Morissette. Andy Griffith would have been 100 years old today. He died in 2012. Marilyn Monroe would have been 100 years old today. She died in 1962. Pat Boone, 91 years old. Morgan Freeman, 89 years old. Cleavon Little, who appeared in Blazing Saddles, mind if I whip this out, would have been 86 years old, died in 2019. Brian Cox, 80 years old. Powers Booth, who was in Sin City, would have been 78, died in 2017. David Ruffner, who's the Cookie Monster? He's 63. Cookie. Heidi Klum, 43, and Amy Schumer, 45. Nobody died because I didn't care. So that's it. There you go. All right? I took, 1 hour and 59 seconds of your lives. Well, it'll be 2 hours and 8 seconds. So there you go. Well, thank you so much for all the people that were here, for everyone that stopped in, for people that watched it, for letting me rant and rave about my pathetic existence at this point. What are you doing these days? Whatever the fuck I want. There's my answer to you. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for enjoying this past year of this shenanigans. I will continue to get better. I'm going to work on my editing skills. I'm going to let AI take over and just, edit this shit. Make it good. Send it to the world. I'll try and keep my ego in check, even though, that's what got me here in the first place. Thanks, George. I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Bring your shirt. Anybody questions, comments, concerns? Bring them up tomorrow. I don't want to keep any longer. Thank you so much. Grateful. Glad to be here. Thank you for there. And for you, Todd, I will, in fact, tonight, I will fade to taupe. That's what I'm going to do. I will fade to taupe. Have a good night. We'll look for you again tomorrow for episode 1, year 2. Fade to taupe.